Okay, good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Asumu, and I am the General Director of IQ Farm, the promoter of the Africa HR Forum, an open forum dedicated to the development of the capacities and standards of the human resource industry. In collaboration with the African Human Resources Confederation, we present the HR trainings, a 30-minute session in which an instructor will briefly share his knowledge in HR or business and answer questions. These free sessions will help us to have varied points of view on current issues and share our experiences with other Pan-African professionals. Please do not hesitate to share the registration links with your colleagues to make these virtual trainings more enriching for everyone. Thank you very much for your participation, and please save the date, the first Thursday of every month. I am honored to present today's lecturer, Mr. Areff Salauroo, who is an MBA holder from the University of Surrey and Chartered Fellow of CIPD. He's the HR Director of LA Sentinelle Group, the President of the Association of HR Professionals of Mauritius, and President of the African HR Confederation. Welcome, Mr. Salauroo.
Thank you so much for your kind words and kind introduction.
Okay, with this introduction, I would like to officially open the floor for you to please present to us today's lesson, Business Restructuring.
Thank you very much. And I think I have to congratulate you and the people in your company for this very laudable initiative, giving free training online. Wow, that's really great. In fact, the topic of today is talking about restructuring businesses. Okay. La restructuration des entreprises, which is quite a topical issue because presently we are having what we call these health crisis that is shaking the whole world, bringing with it economic and financial crisis. So most organizations are looking at best ways how to restructure. When we talk about restructuring, it means we look at ways for changing the way we do things. And when we look at that, there are only two aspects, two areas where we can look. The first one is financial. So you look at your finances and see if you can restructure your debt, if you can call your creditors and have a word with them and things like that. You can sell the assets of the business. You can look at mergers and many things that you can do on the financial aspect. But the one which we also looked at is what we call the operational area. Restructuration de l'organisation en elle-même. Donc on parle de l'organisation, de la restructuration financière, tout en regardant également des possibilités à une restructuration de l'entreprise et son organisation, la façon dont on organise. There is a myth when we talk about restructuring. Many people believe that we restructure only when there are problems. When there's a big issue, like now we're having this pandemic over our heads. So we say, this will be difficult days ahead, let us restructure. It is not true. The truth is that we have to look at restructuring as a continuous process because every now and then we need to see how we have a better business organization, how we improve efficiency, how we make sure that we build competitive advantage. But when we do all that, we are in fact doing a restructuring. We are relooking at the way we do things. You want to increase your productivity at any time. You want to increase your positioning on the market. You want to increase your cash flow. You want to increase your value added to your business portfolio. Donc, parler de l'amélioration du rendement, parler de l'amélioration de la productivité, parler de de voir, d'analyser les tendances critiques au marché, essayer de voir comment on essaye d'avoir une trésorerie solide et essayer de maximiser la valeur de nos portefeuilles. Mais tout ça, ce sont des activités de restructuration. Et lorsqu'on parle de restructuration, organisationnelle surtout, la côté financière ou restructuration légale, on peut laisser ça à des personnes externes à l'entreprise, des avocats, des conseillers financiers, etc. Mais lorsqu'on parle de restructuration organisationnelle, donc là, c'est surtout la gestion des ressources humaines qui rentre en jeu. Ceci dit, il ne faut pas penser que à partir du moment qu'on parle de restructuration, cela signifie lay-off, c'est-à-dire demander aux gens de partir. Layoffs should always be the last recourse. Faire partir les gens, le licenciement, ne doit jamais être en premier sur votre liste. Ça doit être le dernier recours. C'est pour ça qu'il faut avant tout essayer de voir quels sont les autres moyens que nous avons à notre disposition d'améliorer la trésorerie, d'améliorer la productivité, d'améliorer nos avantages comparatifs. Et pour cela, nous allons voir dans les opérations. Éliminer les gaspillages, par exemple. If we eliminate waste constitutes a big loss in terms of resources, be it financial or raw material resources. So if we can try and find ways to save on waste, we will be contributing to improving profitability and productivity. Donc là, je parlais d'essayer de voir tous les moyens possibles d'éliminer le gaspillage. Tout ce qu'on appelle gaspillage. Il y va on parle de toutes les ressources dont l'entreprise a besoin et paye pour ces ressources-là. Donc, si on arrive à économiser, cela va renflouer nos caisses. Once we have done that, we look at how we cut on wastage. Then we have to look at other operations that are no longer required. Et lorsqu'on arrive à voir ça, on va voir qu'il y a très souvent des opérations qui, au lieu d'améliorer l'efficience, ils font le contraire. So when we relook at the production process and see how we can manage it correctly and improve areas where there are unnecessary operations or bottlenecks. Bottlenecks means work in progress, and work in progress means you are not ready to go on the market and reap the benefits of your sales. Donc, éliminer tout ça vous donne là également des possibilités à être une entreprise efficiente. Donc, ensuite viennent les aspects de redesign of work. Est-ce qu'on nous pouvons considérer le redéploiement? Can we consider redeployment? Instead of getting people to leave, can we use them in different areas? Donc, le redeploiement. Ensuite, il y a the redesign of work itself, l'organisation du travail. Est-ce qu'on peut faire du time sharing, job rotation, job enrichment, job things like that, job enlargement. There's so many job designs that could be envisaged. And if we do that, we immediately find that we could be using the people in different areas instead of laying them off. Then we need to look at, can we redesign the operations? Because there is what we call, in all productions, there is a production flow. The same is true for the service sector. Even in the service sector, there are flows. We have to analyze the flows and see if we can gain efficiency in removing or in making sure that the flow is fluid. Donc, si nous regardons les opérations, essayez d'éliminer là où il y a un manque de fluidité. Donc, si on arrive à avoir cette fluidité-là, cela nous permettra d'améliorer et la productivité et la profitabilité de l'entreprise. Également, il y a la partie, hiérarchie. Donc, c'est-à-dire que très souvent, il y a trop de hiérarchies. C'est-à-dire, il y a plusieurs personnes, il y a opérateur, superviseur, chef des sections, manager. So all these should sometimes be relooked at. Maybe if we could create what we call a leaner organizations. Lean organizations are more flexible, more adaptable, and they can be more inclined towards what we call business continuity. That is, they can operate in any circumstances. Mais il y a une autre restructuration qui a pris beaucoup d'ampleur en ce moment-ci, c'est la restructuration de rewards and benefits. Yolanda, you want to say anything? I can't hear you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Because of the time, we would ask that you just speak in English for this session, please. And then maybe another session we will have in French, if you don't mind. Okay?
All right. We can, yeah.
Yes, let's continue in English. It's fine. Thank you very much.
Very good. So I was then going into restructuring, compensation, and benefits. So we've seen organizations with this pandemic situation relooking at how they can restructure compensation, salaries, benefits, etc. We have had what we call voluntary cuts in salaries agreed by many people, mainly in the airline industry, in the tourism sector, where people accept voluntarily to have a sort of review of their compensation and benefits. So when we do that, it creates also resources at the disposal of the organization to be used in other areas to ensure sustainability, long-term results for the business. We have seen also the redesign of work in terms of work from home, working from away from the business, and the lockdown that many people have known has forced many people to go and work away from the office. And now they are saying it's no longer a workplace, it is a place to work. So you can work anywhere, anytime, as long as the responsibilities and the job that you do is transferable. And because of that, they have discovered what we call this work from home, remote working, which many have qualified as a prelude to the future of work, because in the future, most of work will be done in the way that we've seen happening during the lockdown. Few things we need to take into consideration before we move to the question and answers is that whenever we have to do redeployment or layoff, because I know most of HR people listening to me will say this is the area we are most interested in. I'll make a sort of hint, sharing experience with you, to say that make sure that the procedures that you put in place has a maximum degree of fairness. Many organizations have adopted the last in, first out with a way to, all right, for those who've been here for a longer term, let's give them more, give them priority to stay, and look at the one who've just joined, so that we keep this concept of trust, the mutuality element of trust between employer and employee. Some organizations have looked at making sure that they encourage people who are nearing retirement or pre-retirement. They encourage them to go, because don't forget that restructuring has a cost. So sometimes laying off too many people may cost you too much that you don't see the benefit in your business, in your restructuring plan. Make sure you communicate. Communication is very important when you do restructuring, because you have to explain why you are doing it. Once people know and believe in what you're doing, they will adhere to your plan. They will adhere to your initiative. Offer retraining wherever possible to give people possibilities to do other things. I have known organizations that have helped their people find a job elsewhere. And there are so many HR tricks like this that you use to make sure that it is a very difficult, one of the most difficult aspect in HR management, in people management, when you have in your restructuring plan to reach what I call the last recourse, where you have to ask people to leave the organization. It's, we call it a drame humain, a drame humain. I'll end it there and we'll wait for questions. I'll take your questions from now. 15 minutes of presentation and 15 minutes for question and answers. So I'll wait for your questions. I can see one question from Daoude Mbaye saying that is successful restructuring one that takes into account psychosocial disorders, human diagnosis, and emphasizes communication? Yes, I totally agree. We have to take this into consideration because I use the word drame humain. It's really hard, very, very hard. So when you do it, yes, please make sure that you take into consideration what we call psychosocial disorders, psychosocial disposition, take into consideration the human aspect of it, because it will be very emotional. And that's why maybe it is the most difficult part of human resource management. Hi, Dauda Mbaye, I think that answers your question. Yolanda, do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question.
Yes.
How can small companies effectively restructure if they already have a limited amount of personnel? And what type of restructuring can they do, or what parts of their company do they need to maintain while going through this restructuring, which are essential to their core business?
Yeah, you know, in all businesses, be it small or big businesses, you have what we call the core activities, and you have the peripherals. I think the core you will have what we call priority. It's what we call the support services, the peripheral. It's there that you will be looking first of all, because being a small businesses, what you don't want to do is to lose your capacity to produce. So you have to identify where are my core activities, and once you identify your core activities, then you can look at what you call the support services, the peripheral activities. There you can maybe have some savings to do. I've got a question from Baraka Ahmad Brem. How important is a redeployment? Very important. Very important, because a redeployment tries to make sure that you don't lose what you call people, the talented one, the good people, the one who are willing and capable of bringing productivity for you. So you don't lose them, you redeploy them. I've got someone who said, I can't understand English. I've been trying to share in French, but you can use Google Translate service. And if we'll make sure next time to ensure that we have bilingual wherever possible. I've got another question about remote working and managing efficiency. I think remote working has been forced on us with the lockdown. Many organizations were practicing remote working, but they were doing it timidly. They were not all in for it. They were like in a learning curve, learning phase, watching how to do it, or trying to implement it like on a trial basis. But many organizations, I'm here talking especially for the case in Mauritius, when we had the total lockdown, so all operations, wherever possible, except in the manufacturing sector, where you use machines to manufacture, then people will have to come down to the machine to produce. Whatever was transferable was transferred and went to home, and people started doing it from home. So the remote working has been tested. We have during the lockdown, we have seen how it can work, where it can work, and we have also identified all the toothing problems that comes with it. And gladly enough, many organizations have learned the lesson, and they have now a very good versions of remote working. In Mauritius, I think we still have around, despite the fact that we are COVID safe, we do not have any local case of COVID. Despite the fact that we are COVID safe in Mauritius, we still have around 40% of our workforce continuing in the remote working arrangement. It's working, and if it's working, people are saying yes. Why not continue with it? I've got a question from Adila talking about SMEs trying to hold on to people, and it is tough, and they have not been prepared to face such a crisis. I think it's true. Many organizations were not prepared. I think I said that early on. Many organizations were not prepared. We keep on doing what we call assumptions about the future, and we build our strategies according to the assumptions of the future that we make. And all these assumptions that we make about the future, sometimes they stand true and sometimes they don't. I think in this case of this pandemic, not many organizations could have seen it coming. Some of them who have seen it coming were prepared, and as for you, Adila, I think many were not prepared. That's why a word of wisdom, this is what you have asked for, is to always make sure that you have a business continuity plan. That is, if tomorrow there is a cyclone warning number 4, if tomorrow there is a drought, if tomorrow there is a major catastrophe or whatever, can we continue to operate? If yes, how will we operate? This business continuity plan is nowadays very, very important. And if you need help on that, Adila, I'll be more happy than help you with that. Oui, donc on me fait signe que si jamais il y a des questions que vous souhaitez poser en français, je vais faire de mon mieux pour répondre en français. I don't want this barrier, language barrier. Let us make sure that everybody has a chance. We have 5 minutes left. We make sure that everyone has a possibility to participate. Yes, I have a question about government looking at restructuring initiatives. I think yes, many will have to look at it. Many governments. We have seen, for example, freezing recruitments. We have seen like freezing promotions. We have seen like freezing so many benefits, etc. passage benefits. I'm talking about government sector here. We have seen it in the government sector. There is big resistance from the trade unions. They have to stand for the interest of their members. But the truth is that we have to face the reality of the moment. So the reality of the moment calls for measures that mean going for restructuring. I think everyone will need to be on board. J'ai une question en français. À quand une restructuration est vraiment nécessaire? J'ai parlé de ça dans mon introduction en disant que ce sont surtout dans les moments de difficulté, lorsque les entreprises ont des difficultés financières ou autres, qu'ils pensent à une restructuration. Mais la vérité, c'est qu'il faut toujours garder ça sous l'œil. Essayer d'avoir, constamment, voir et revoir nos opérations. La gestion du personnel nous amènera à voir si nous avons du surplus, si nous avons des manques. On appelle ça, dans le terme HR, faire ce qu'on appelle le Human Resource Planning, la planification des ressources humaines. Donc, si vous avez une planification des ressources humaines, ça va déjà vous démontrer les manques ou le surplus. Donc, rien qu'adresser ces manques ou surplus est en elle-même une restructuration. Lorsque vous faites, par exemple, demander aux gens de changer de méthode de travail, de changer d'opération, de faire une formation, pour faire une nouvelle opération. Donc, tout ça, c'est une restructuration. En vérité, un autre terme pour restructuration, c'est la réorganisation. Et quand on parle de réorganisation, on parle de changement. Alors, j'ai une question. De gérer, c'est prévoir. Doit-on alors, dit-on alors, certaines institutions restructurent continuellement? Quelles sont les conséquences? Oui, il y a des conséquences positives comme des conséquences négatives. Donc, lorsque nous parlons de restructuration, je veux bien expliquer que restructuration veut dire restructuration financière, restructuration des opérations, restructuration de dette. Il y a plusieurs types de restructuration. Très souvent, lorsqu'on parle de restructuration, on l'associe facilement au licenciement, essayer de diminuer le nombre de personnes qui travaillent pour l'entreprise, etc. Mais ça, j'expliquais ça tout à l'heure, c'est le dernier recours. Avant de faire ça, il vous faut voir toutes les autres restructurations possibles. Je parlais d'essayer d'économiser sur le gaspillage, essayer de voir si on peut réorganiser le travail d'une autre façon, essayer de voir s'il y a des opérations qu'on peut s'en passer, etc. Do you remember restructuring that failed? Yes, of course, so many have failed. If it is not well planned, if you do not communicate well what is it that you're trying to do, if you have poor leadership trying to implement the restructuring, definitely there are so many reasons that restructuring has failed in so many cases. As I said earlier on, communication, explain it to people, fairness in procedures, make sure that you don't use it to get rid of people you don't like, make sure that there is fairness in your procedures, and offer retraining if possible, redeploy, try to help them by looking if there are jobs available elsewhere in other organizations, then you have more chances on your side. What are the factors taken into consideration when it's restructuring? I think I have been talking about that the whole way through. The factors you have to consider is, does it bring value, increased value? Does it make the business look better? Does it bring increase in productivity? Does it bring a competitive advantage when I do it? These will answer your questions. Dans mon pays, par exemple, plusieurs institutions se couvrent derrière la pandémie COVID-19 pour se débarrasser de leur personnel indésirable. But that's very wrong. That's very wrong. C'est pas bien de faire ça. Se débarrasser du personnel indésirable n'est pas bien. C'est pour ça que je dis transparence dans vos procédures. Il faut avoir ce qu'on appelle de la justice dedans. Il faut qu'on démontre qu'on est juste. Et si on est juste, on va certainement avoir une bonne restructuration. Si on n'est pas juste, vous aurez beaucoup d'obstacles et vous allez faillir. Yolanda, is that okay? Because I think we have crossed 30 minutes.